Hey everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of Back to the Podcast. We're your hosts, Justin Neal, and I am Chris Lawler. Today, we're diving into a topic that's as thrilling as it is chilling: iconic on-screen deaths. But before we get started, here's a quick disclaimer. We're going to be discussing some graphic and intense scenes, so if you're squeamish or not in the mood for some cinematic carnage, you might want to skip this one. But for the rest of you, buckle up because it's going to be a wild ride. Yeah! Today's episode will take you through the most gruesome deaths, the funniest demises, and the most unexpected departures, and the most memorable sacrifices in film and TV history. But before we dive into those categories, we have to start with a tribute to an actor who has made dying an art form. Yeah, that's right. We're going to start off with talking about Sean Bean, who has died on screen more times than any other actor, an incredible 25 times. So let's kick things off by looking at Sean Bean's various deaths. His first on-screen death was in Caravaggio. I've never seen this one. Have you ever seen that one, Justin? It was all the way back in 1986, so it was definitely a little bit before our time, where his character Ranuccio, I think is how you pronounce that one, met a very bloody end. But that was just the beginning. Over the years, Sean Bean has graced us with some truly memorable death scenes. And here's just a few highlights. So I know this is kind of where we started this conversation. So let's kick it off, man. What was your favorite Sean Bean on-screen death?
Well, the first one I can remember is GoldenEye.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
That's probably where he showed up on my radar that I can really remember. I'm sure if I looked at his list in front of me, I could say, well, maybe something else I might have seen him in. But GoldenEye was the one. It was like, okay, who's that guy?
I mean, he was the big bad Bond baddie, and in Pierce Brosnan's first outing, which was a smash success. GoldenEye was huge, especially from the hype of the video game as well. And the
video game was great.
It was great. And so he played Alec Trevelyan. Is that Trevelyan? Did I get that? Yeah,
I remember that.
So,
Alec Trevelyan.
Yeah, that fall from the satellite dish.
For England, James. For me.
It was a combination of a stunt double and then a model, because that was back in the day. What was that year? 96?
Martin Campbell directed that, if I remember correct. Man,
you're so good with the names.
But Martin Campbell directed that, and he also did the reboot with Daniel Craig.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
So that's my Sean Bean. What's your Sean Bean?
Oh, I mean, I think everyone goes back to Boromir as well from The Lord of the Rings. One of those times where he wasn't the villain and was actually receiving a heroic death because he had learned the error of his ways. What I had read when we were doing the research on this one was that his reactions to the arrows were so convincing that Peter Jackson decided to use a combination of practical effects and CGI to enhance the scene, because he was just giving such a great performance while dying on screen. And it's a memorable moment.
There's one shot when Viggo Mortensen leans in to kiss him on the forehead, and that profile shot from the side as he's laying there, an arrow is pointed out there in that ditch, is from a painting. And I have a book of paintings based on, Middle Earth and stuff like that I've had for 25 years. And that, which I had before the movies came out. And so when I saw that shot, I was like, oh, Peter Jackson took that, inspiration wise from that painting, I bet, because I have that in a book. And then I remember in the, one of the special features for The Lord of the Rings in the extended editions, they mentioned that. So
In peace, son of Gondor.
Very iconic, memorable moment.
I think it also set the bar for the rest of the rest of the series that we were all prepping to watch, because that was just sort of the end of the first movie.
Well, even before that, even though we know, anyone who had read the book know he comes back as Gandalf the White, but when Gandalf sort of sacrifices himself a bit.
Fly, you fools.
When they get outside in that push in on Elijah Wood. and he turns and looks back and like the tear rolls down. You're just like, mwah, c'est magnifique.
Hold it together for that.
Yeah, and then it's like, give him a moment for pity's sake. Sean Bean, there you go.
Sean Bean really, but I like that one because he is a villain in a lot of these other deaths on screen. And I know another one that we were really hyped about was the Patriot Games. I grew up loving Patriot Games.
Then actually, that would be before GoldenEye.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, Patriot
Good
Games
point.
was just before that. But, I mean, he plays a really good IRA villain in Patriot Games.
I shot the end of that 3 times because of Harrison Ford. First, he drowned me, and then I went back to England, and I flew back the next weekend. He drowned me again, but then he smashed something in my head that said that didn't work. So then I flew back again, and he killed me with a boat hook on a ship.
Then, of course, they escape off the boat just to have it ram into rocks and do the Hollywood explosion at the end.
Love Patriot Games.
Then I think a lot of more modern audiences are familiar with him from Game of Thrones, and he was one of the first characters to be really offed.
So long as I am your king, treason shall never go unpunished. Sir Ilyn, bring me his head.
Season 1, I think. Now, I'm sorry to say, I didn't see that one. Did you see that show?
I've seen the first season, but I've listened to all of the audiobooks.
Oh, good. So you're on that
know
side.
the
Okay.
story, but more from the reading side.
So,
Even though I listened to it, but his death like pretty much sets off the like plot of Game of Thrones, right?
I guess so. I've never seen the show.
But the books, I thought the books were interesting.
Well, there you go. And I'm sure the books are completely different from the show. I know that they veered off of it. But so his beheading scene, at least when they shot it in the show, was so realistic that it caused some crew members to look away during filming.
They actually thought they beheaded Sean Bean on set for this show. They couldn't deal with it.
And I know he's got way more on-screen death credits, but then the last one I had on here was in Equilibrium. Do you remember that Christian Bale action?
What's the? It's a martial arts style with gunplay.
Was it Gun Fu? It wasn't Gun Fu, right?
Oh, I hope not. Gun fu, that's bad.
Someone help us out here. It was, I thought it had almost like a karate kind of name. Gun Kate or something.
But I remember it didn't really catch on. It was like parkour showed up for a little while, and this was gonna be kind of one of those things, and it didn't move beyond that movie, remember?
It was very stylish, and the more times I've seen it, the more I've been like, wow, this really is kind of dating itself. Yeah, it
doesn't age
too
well.
So
anyway, let's keep going. Death.
Oh yeah, death. So that was just Sean Bean getting us started, if you will, getting the engines revved up. So what we wanted to do was take a look at gruesome deaths first. Let's go ahead and just dive into it.
We're gonna go with the gore first. Okay.
Absolutely. So the thing that I think comes to mind for me the most here, and I'm just going to set this one off with you.
If we start on the same thing, I'm going to lose my mind.
I'm about to say the intro to Final Destination 2.
Oh, no, that was not what I was going to say.
Way off course.
Holy shit.
Way off course, apparently. Justin.
I was pointing over here and you were pointing over there.
I'm just saying, I was actually on the edge of my seat thinking, like, there's no way. Justin also thought
Final Destination 2, you're right.
But the intro to Final Destination 2.
I just walked off a cliff on that one.
Oh, yeah, no.
On my own.
So, I mean, even the first movie doesn't come close to what they wanted to
Devon
ramp
Sawa,
up.
right? He was in the first one?
Yeah, in the first one. But do you know this intro with the log semi that's like hauling timber and it comes loose?
I do remember this.
And then it's like going through the windshield, and then that kid's playing with the water bottles. It ends up underneath the gas pedal of the brake, and the mom can't slow down, and then they just like drive head on, and it creates this entire pileup on the highway. It has feared people my age from driving near those log trucks in fear that even really could happen. So that's what I wanted to start off with.
Okay.
Now, there's so many different deaths, right? We could nitpick that whole franchise, but that set piece alone is gruesome.
That's interesting that you mention it, though, also beyond just the gruesomeness, but just the idea of it instilling fear into the audience that stays beyond watching the movie, and a movie famous for that, which has one of my favorite deaths on screen. It's a monster death, and this is Jaws.
Oh, yeah, Jaws definitely is on there.
And at the end, it's the air tank in his mouth and
Smile, you son of a...
yes!
For me, it's when he's getting slowly... Well, he just... It's just terrifying, man.
The blood packet, old school.
So I'm with you right there, Jaws.
But going back to the instilling fear is
It kept people out of the water.
it didn't for me, but I know for so many people, and even my wife, who was born a decade after that movie came out, she saw it.
I saw it young.
On when she was young and doesn't like going into the.
It made me not want to take a bath.
Wow.
I was like, dude, somehow this shark is going to end up in this bathtub. That's how freaked out that movie made me when I saw it as a kid, too. There's even the girl at the beginning that's getting dipped below water. You're not really getting gore, but oh, is it frightening?
You don't even see it, but it's terrifying.
It is.
That's an on-screen death. Okay, so that's a great way to open a movie is an on-screen death, right? How many? I know there's something on here.
Oh, the next one on my list is definitely, it's not directly the opening of the movie, but it's very early. And that's Gage Creed in Pet Sematary, that little 2-year-old wandering away from his parents. Now, the more I go back and rewatch this sequence, I'm like, these parents are oblivious that this kid has wandered away.
Bad parenting.
Who also had a picnic next to a highway that noisy with semi-trucks too.
Bad parenting.
It's just a recipe for disaster. But when that little kid goes out there, the way they stage it and him looking at the truck and the truck coming through and the bloody little shoe flying through the air, it's morbid.
Yeah, that was the first Stephen King novel I ever read. I think that or Cujo. One of the like those were the first two that I read. They were like back to back. I read those and saw those movies.
That did stick with me. I was pretty young when I saw Pet Sematary for the first time.
Okay.
And so seeing that little bloody shoe and that dad, I mean, the actor, I can't think of his name, that plays the father in that, and the way that he's like, oh, it's like so traumatic.
This is what I was gonna go with, because you talk about a franchise, and I was like, yeah, let's start with the
so what'd you
big
think?
bloody. I was thinking of the chest burster from John Hurt in Ridley Scott's Alien.
%. I did have that as a franchise on here. We're definitely talking about some alien stuff, and the chestburster is one of those moments.
Iconic.
And then he comes back and redoes it in Spaceballs, which is
oh no, not again.
Which is, I think, even chef's kiss.
And then does a dance number with it on the countertop, right?
Yeah. But you're right, like that is gore, and it's so real that he's convulsing and everyone's just freaking out, and he just then right through his chest. You're like, I've never seen anything like that ever before. And then they do the close-up with it, the puppet, and they're doing the wire work where like its tail is curling around and stuff and the blood is on it. Like that's the shot that really sells the moment as well. And then it just takes off, and then you're like, oh great, what was that? What just happened? This friend's dead, even though he was acting fine 5 seconds ago. What are we in for? Oh, that really set the tone for that movie, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And another one too that came out in the late 90s that set the tone. And even though they were riffing on what Alfred Hitchcock did with Psycho, which was kill Janet Leigh, she was a mega star and no one killed the mega star in like, less than halfway through the movie. And so what Wes Craven did with Scream
I'm glad you
was
bring it up.
introduced with Drew Barrymore.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I guess I dialed the wrong number.
Who was a huge
star.
movie
She
star,
was, like, the way
probably the
biggest
biggest
name,
star
yeah.
in the movie, and then they in the opening sequence, and that had not been done like that since Psycho.
And then they do the little hyperlapse run. Whew, man. Then the gore and the kill value just goes up. But you're right. Starting it off by killing the most iconic person and the biggest name in your film.
Yeah.
I was confused by it when I saw it for the first time.
I remember like saying, being like, yeah, like no f***ing way.
Well, and then the thing that really kind of spawned this, just in the back of my head, this conversation, even though I really despise this movie, it does have one of the coolest death sequences in it. So I wanted to give a shout out to Event Horizon when that woman is hallucinating and for some reason thinks she sees her child and like runs straight off a platform and just falls to her death. So bizarre. But then whatever body double that they use, like I'm assuming it was like a rubber mannequin, and the way they drop it on that metal and it just kind of like combusts apart it's pretty awesome.
Actually, I watch it now and it's more tame.
It is
I
tame.
remember though,
True
at that time when I was 15, it was
Yes.
super gory.
I remember enjoying it the first time I saw it too, and then every time I've gone back to watch it, I'm like, this is pretty lame. So what else was next on your list?
Well, I'm thinking of one of the goriest things on my list. I wanted to bring it up because it wasn't just, I don't think it's interesting just because it was gory, but when I was younger, this is one that really had a deep impact on me because of the way it's staged and everything. And that's in The Silence of the Lambs, when he's in the cage on that floor by himself and he's doing something bad. And then you go outside to the cops who storm the castle and they come in and the man is strung up on the side of the cage and it's backlit and his stomach is open. The pageantry of it, like he had set it up almost in a religious thing for these people, his, colleagues, to discover him in this almost ceremonial position and dead. And that had such an impact on me when I was young.
Wow, I don't remember this one as well as you do, apparently. I haven't seen that movie as many times, and I didn't see it when I was young either.
You'll see it when you watch this episode.
I bet I will. I'm going to have to go back down memory lane with that. Well, I mean, the rest of mine are fairly kind of enjoyable and not as hardcore as that. So I think I'm going to bring it back in, but Jurassic Park, right? I think the lawyer getting eaten off the toilet and getting split in half was really awesome to watch on screen. Not as gory. I mean, obviously this isn't a hard R film, but for what he was able to get away with, that one always sat with me.
At the time, it was like, Jesus.
Yeah, he got it the worst out of everybody.
The only one on my side is
The blood-sucking lawyer.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Did you have one more big one?
Well, I like the one in Hot Fuzz when the reporter by the cathedral where the chunk gets dropped and it falls down and it hits him.
He like walks for like 2 seconds with that. Oh,
Yes! I love that one.
I think I still have the goriest thing though.
Okay.
I do. I mean, and this one kind of teeters on almost comical, but it's still a lot of blood.
Oh, I got it.
It's Kill Bill Volume 1.
Bill, it's your baby.
I was going to say the whole Crazy 88.
That one I think is just one of the bloodiest things I've ever seen on screen. And then of course, just to top it all off, to spank the last one.
This is what you get for f***ing around Yakuzas! Go home to your mother!
Just sends him on his way. I do enjoy the hell out of that sequence, man. There's a lot of good moments in that. But
And this isn't an epic gore one, but it is like kind of oddly unique. That is Ridley Scott's sequel to Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, when he cuts Ray Liotta's skull and takes off and cooks his brain in front of him.
I'm squirming right now just even remembering that. Thanks a lot.
That's
morbid.
I've aged in movies, and that's more horrifying. That's even scarier when you see yourself. Oh my God, that's what it's gonna look like, huh? And then they had to shave. See, they shaved my head too completely, which I hadn't done, and I really hadn't. I never noticed my hairline was that far back. I didn't really notice that. I've been covering it for years.
And guys, we could have talked about some more disgusting stuff. We really, I mean,
which is a whole other thing. That would be its own episode.
Body horror is a whole different thing. I'm talking about just great gruesome deaths on screen.
That's the one thing, the one body horror thing that I noted now that you mention it, and that is Cronenberg's The Fly.
Okay, that is a disgusting film. Yes.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm like oddly fascinated by it though, even though
I mean, the special effects makeup that they're doing in there is
utterly repulsed by it.
Oh yeah.
I don't do well with body horror, but that one, it's one of those like, oh my God, this is so disgusting.
There's so many other things that we could have talked about, but we definitely only have so much time, and those are some of the ones that I just have never had an opportunity to actually gush about. Okay. Did you get it? Anyway, so I figured for our next segment, we might shift gears, lighten the tone a little bit, and talk about funny on-screen deaths. And I know that that's like, well, what is a funny on-screen death? Well, we're about to find out. We're going to talk about some very comical moments where death was the joke. Oh, man, I had fun with this one. Do you have some good ones? Kick it off, man.
Okay, well, the first one that I can remember seeing that was a comedic death that really stands out in my mind is from one of our mutual favorite movies, and that's Clue, and that is... I am your singing telegram.
Boom! They're not even waiting. They're just murdering everyone now.
That's an example of a comedic death to me. What's on your list?
Oh, dude, the one that makes me just almost fall on the floor and laugh until I cry is from Not Another Teen Movie, where they're having the heroic moment where the nerdy kid gets on the field and Chris Evans is like, I'm going to throw the nerdy kid the football, and he makes the touchdown, but then out of nowhere, two linebackers rip him in half. And it's just it's so over the top, gory and ridiculous. It comes out of absolutely nowhere. That's his trauma that he's living with and why he doesn't like to play quarterback anymore, because the one time that he did, he threw it to a 90-pound nerdy kid and he split it.
And he got ripped in half.
I'm dying right now. The first time I ever saw that, it was so unexpected and I just lost it. Not Another Teen Movie is a very underrated comedy if you guys have never seen that, but that moment in particular is hilarious.
I did it!
The dramatic tone that they're giving to the scene and the ridiculousness of it.
It juxtaposes the
so
payoff.
Funny, gosh. I'm dying right now. Anyway, I'm going to throw it back to you then. I'm going to defer back to you.
Okay, this is one that I saw in the theater, and it was probably the only moment in the movie I liked or laughed at the first time I saw it. Now it's one that's sort of near and dear to my heart. It grew on me. But I remember in 2001, I saw Zoolander in the theater. And I was like, this is the dumbest movie I've ever seen. It
is the dumbest movie.
I hadn't correlated that Ben Stiller directed it himself, which made me look at it differently later on. But when I was seeing it in the theater, the one in the gas station where they start having a gasoline fight, I was sitting there going like, this is fantastic. And then lights a cigarette and they all blow up. That's a comedic death.
That is a pretty funny moment. This one I think takes the cake though.
Okay.
I'm going to go back a little older. I can't even remember what year Austin Powers came out. It feels like it was mid to late 90s. Now there is the Will Ferrell one where he's like,
I fear it might be gangrenous. The wound is beginning to smell a little like almonds, which is not good.
But he doesn't really die. So I'm going to move on from that one and go on to the one where it was the security guard and the steamroller. No!
Watch out!
Watch out!
Watch out!
Oh.
Just slowly waiting.
All the way across the frame. I remember that. I haven't thought about that movie in a long time.
And obviously they stretched it out and played it out. So anyway, steamroller guy.
Okay, one that's comedic, but also sort of unexpected, and that's what makes it comedic. And it was put up on when we posted it online to get, ideas from other people. And I had already put it on my list. I'm so happy about this. And it's one of those things that can happen with movie making is that it was unplanned. And Harrison Ford was sick and they had this whole fight sequence planned.
Good one.
And they just couldn't do it and they were behind and
Yeah.
he was sick and blah, blah, blah. He was like, just pull out your gun and shoot him.
So actually, there's more to that story. It wasn't just Harrison Ford. It was like the entire cast and crew had gotten really sick from water or food that they were consuming. I think they were in Morocco at the time filming this.
Were they in Morocco? Yeah.
Yeah. And so it wasn't just Harrison Ford, it was everyone. So everyone was feeling bad.
Bad dates.
Bad dates.
And so they were like, yeah. And they cut out 3 pages of script of a fight sequence just to get that one. But you're right. That one came out of nowhere. It was something they thought of on the day. And it's actually an iconic moment.
I bet in the theater, like at that time, contemporarily, because we obviously weren't able to see that in the theater, but I bet that played really, really well. I could imagine getting like a laugh from the entire crowd.
No, that's a good one. Who gave us that idea?
Dan Cook, I believe. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. So
Dan and Rob, those were the 2. So thank you.
we did get some contributions this week, and I think I got one of the best ones, but it's not for this category.
Okay, cool.
But another comical one, man.
That was a great one.
Black Knight from Monty Python.
None shall pass. What? None shall pass.
Yes, I didn't think about that.
I
the Black Knight always triumphs.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
You liar.
Come on, you pansy.
And then, it's just obviously a flesh wound has become an iconic line.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left.
Yes, I have.
Look.
Just a flesh wound.
And turns out that was an improv line from John Cleese. I don't know why I was drawing a blank.
Come here.
What are you going to do, bleed on me?
I'm invincible.
You're a loony.
But that is a momentous comedic moment.
All right. We'll call it a draw.
We'll call it a draw.
It's such a good moment, man. There's a lot of great moments, but that's a good
The
one.
first half of that movie is so solid. It really kind of goes off the rails in that Monty Python sort of way after that. But
Yeah. Well, and I don't even know if I can count that as a death because he's still.
Come, Patsy.
Oh, I see. Running away, eh? You yellow bastards! Come back here and take what's coming to you!
yeah, it counts.
He's still talking at the end of it, but I had to throw that one in there, man.
One of the ones that I thought of, I love, and we talked about this movie recently, was in Team America. I love when they have Michael Moore come in strapped with dynamite.
Hey, Team America, I got something for you.
And he blows himself up. That blows up Mount Rushmore. That's an iconic death.
An iconic puppet death.
Yes.
Oh, man. For me, man, Bill Murray dying in Zombieland.
No!
No, it's okay. It's okay. I got him.
Is that how you say hello? Where you come from?
That was the next one on my list.
Right on. Yeah. Bill Murray getting shot and him slowly dying. And then Emma Stone, I think, really, her chuckling in the middle. And I'm sorry, he just.
I'm sorry, it just gets me.
It's such a great moment. And it comes out of nowhere. Obviously, doing some dumb zombie prank gets him killed. Oh, it's such a good, iconic, comedic one. All right. That was the end of my list. You got any more to throw out?
Yeah, I got 2 more. One that was very famous, and I know you love this movie, and so you're going to go, oh, yeah, duh. And that is in The Princess Bride. And, never
Go in against the Sicilian when death is on the line.
I wasn't thinking about that one, but yes, that is monumental.
And then one last one was from my childhood. Okay, so I had a good friend down the street from the neighborhood that I lived in Chattanooga, and we had a sleepover at his house one night, and his stepmom did not care what rating any movie was that anyone watched. And so that was the only place that like occasionally I would see something, you know, snippets of an R-rated movie or something. Yeah. And so he had friends over and they put on Critters. Do you remember the movie Critters?
That second one, I think, is the one that messed with me. But yeah, which one is this one? To the original?
Okay, so and this is in the first one, and they're in the farmhouse. And this movie is actually pretty gory. And so when I was young, I was probably like 7 or 8 when I saw this. And so it was mostly like, oh man, I shouldn't be watching this. But this moment made me bust out laughing because it's so funny. So these two critters roll up and they speak their own language. So it comes up as, you know, and it comes up as subtitles. And so they roll up and one of them says, they have weapons. And the other one says, so what? And then the shotgun goes off and one of them gets blown away. And the other one just goes, and then that's the end of the sequence subtitle.
Critters was a Jim Henson production too. Don't forget that one. Don't forget that. That's why it's featured in Ninja Turtles, the original Ninja Turtles. When Raph goes to a movie, he goes to see Critters. It was kind of double, you know, dipping, if you will. It was like, what do I want to say? Like advertising his own movie.
Self-promotion.
Yes, so that is great.
Shameless self-promotion.
I really hope you guys had some fun laughing along with some of those.
Yeah.
And so for segment 4 here, we are going to move on to unexpected deaths.
Yeah.
So this one is going to be the ones that came out of nowhere, maybe the ones that ripped at your heartstrings and made you cry a little bit, or, you know, were pretty gory still, but just came out of left field. And I've got a laundry list for this one.
Yeah, me too. The next two, epic and unexpected, are going to be
we've got some stuff.
Our meat and potatoes. Okay, let's do it. You go first.
Okay, so this one I'm going to start off with because this one I recently rewatched, and it was Sex and the City. I told you I just recently re-binged Sex and the City.
Right.
But there is an episode where this woman that she used to hang out with, Carrie used to hang out with, they're at a party and she can't smoke inside. So she opens up one of these huge pane glass windows and starts standing next to it, a little drunk on her high heels, and she missteps. In front of an entire party of people watching her fall to her death from like the 50th floor of a building in New York. And it just comes out of nowhere for this episode. And I had to bring that up because I had forgotten all about that death sequence. Such a good one. Anyway, I hope that just kicks it off for a very unexpected on-screen death.
So I got a Brad Pitt twofer.
Okay, I think I know one of them, so I'm curious what the second one is.
Okay, so the first one though is in Meet Joe Black.
Oh, well, I haven't seen that one, but okay.
When he's alive, he meets Claire Forlani. And, you know, their meet cute is in a, you know, cafe, a diner, and they talk and then they go out front and they're both like, neither of them really wants to say that they're kind of interested in the other. And so, you know, they just kind of have this moment and then they part. And then one of them will walk and turn and the other one's still walking. And then they turn and the other one's walking. And it goes on as they go further and further away. And if you're into it, it's this really lovely, sort of bittersweet sort of, you know, moment. And Brad's looking away and he's like, okay. You're like, holy shit. It is so unexpected.
I have seen that moment a billion times, but I've never seen the movie, so I do know this sequence.
I still, like, every time, it's like, oh, shit. So
I have to guess the second one, Burn After Reading?
Burn After Reading is the second one, because who was expecting Clooney to shoot Brad Pitt in the closet in that one? And that was one of the ones that someone mentioned on my Facebook page.
Yeah, that one had already made it to my list, but I did see someone had mentioned that one as well. And it's like, kudos, guys. That is a great moment as well.
I remember seeing that in the theater being like,
and it's so funny too. That could have almost gone into comical as well, but he just is like, well, screw it. I'm just going to come out and I'm going to smile and talk to this guy. And George Clooney so freaked the fuck out. That moment right there is just, it was such a good moment.
Yeah.
That movie was a lot of unexpected moments, but yes, him blowing off Brad Pitt's head. And of course, with us as the audience knowing their longevity together and their friendship and stuff, him finally getting to shoot him in the face on screen was kind of hilarious as well.
Yeah.
So another one, shot in the head, didn't see it coming, The Departed.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio, just like we were talking about earlier with Drew Barrymore. You know, you've got someone like Leonardo DiCaprio headlining your film. You're not expecting him
doors open,
to get his head blown off. And not even by like any of the main cast, by one of the supporting cast members too. And whew, it comes out of nowhere. Now, a lot of people die in that one.
Yeah, I was about to say we can name a couple more in that one.
No one sees that coming. I don't
Really,
think
no one
anyone
was
expected that one. So
No, and Leo is one of the biggest stars in the world at that point, which is probably why he was like,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Let's do it. Yeah.
yeah, let's do it.
Very unexpected.
Yeah,
moment.
that was
'Cause, I mean,
that was very unexpected.
He's the hero of our story, if you will, and the fact that we're not watching him now, and there's a good length of film that's left over.
There's like 20 minutes left,
and he's just gone. No more Leo. What?
So this wasn't a main character, but a very unexpected gunshot to the face is in Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Where
Yes, this one was highly recommended by our viewers.
Marvin, what do you make of all this?
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
Well, you gotta have an opinion. I mean, do you think that God came down from heaven and stopped? Oh, what's happening? Oh, man. Oh man, I shot
Marvin in the face.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere. It's such a good moment though, right?
That becomes a whole thing because of this moment that they were on a different trajectory and then this thing happened and their day got derailed and they got to do something else now.
I think John Travolta's character was at fault there. I mean, who just casually holds
He
their
was
gun?
absolutely at fault
you know
there.
What I'm saying?
Amateur hour.
It is amateur hour. Oh,
Amateur.
It's so ridiculous. But yeah, poor Marvin. He didn't deserve that.
Yeah, but
ending.
he was also a junkie, so
I guess so. He was.
Maybe he was hopped up.
And that was a very unexpected scene. There's a couple more unexpected moments in Pulp Fiction. I mean, once again, John Travolta also dying on the toilet from Bruce Willis later on. Good moment. Good moment.
Great moment.
All right. So we're going to get away from some gunfire for a second then and go and talk about a very unexpected moment in a very unexpected movie that kind of blew everyone away when it came out, and that's Deep Blue Sea. All right. So Sam Jackson is giving the hoorah speech. They're all going to make it out of here, and out of nowhere, grabs him, and then they rip him in half, and you get to watch this whole CG death sequence out in the water, and it's so great of a moment. I was in the theater that opening weekend when I saw that, and the crowd went wild for it because
that's hilarious.
It's so unexpected. And Sam Jackson was a pretty big name at the time. A lot of those other people weren't as big, and so for him to just get taken out halfway through the movie in that unexpected fashion was incredible, man. I love that on-screen death.
And this one came recommended, but it was also on my list. And that is in Tropic Thunder when Steve Coogan is giving his speech.
Let's go and make the greatest war movie ever.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
he steps on a landmine and and they don't believe he's dead, or at least.
And I think I can spot prop head when I see one. Oh, Jesus.
Then Stiller doesn't believe he's dead and goes over and starts
Wow. Ooh.
Ooh, you getting down now?
playing with his corpse.
Get the shots, and I'm going to make sure because I'm the director.
It's the worst.
Speaking of the funniest 30 minutes of a movie ever, the first 30 minutes of Tropic Thunder are some of the funniest I've ever seen on screen.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to go in a totally different tone, though. But this one was super unexpected. And I'm going to go TV instead of movie on this one.
Okay.
And that is going to be, I think it was season 3, but the one where Giancarlo Esposito gets blown up in Breaking Bad. When he visits his father, or I can't remember their relation, and he blows him up with the bell on his wheelchair. And he gets to walk out, and you see half of his face is normal, and then they pan around to see his skull and everything, and then he just falls forward after fixing his tie. Ooh. It was pretty momentous. That moment right there was, I think, the creme de la creme of the show. I wanted to pick out the other part, but no one died in this other sequence. So I had to pick one where someone died. But the Danny Trejo head blowing up on the tortoise was pretty cool, too.
Welcome to.
There was some supportive characters that died, but Hank survives and everything. So I had to go with Giancarlo Esposito. I think that was a monumental moment in the show. And I think that's when people really took notice of, this is one of the greatest shows on television of all time. It was incredible. And that death really hit home because he was such a badass on TV. You saw the show, right? Do you know this one?
I did. I saw it all the way through.
Okay, good.
One of the ones that, and you know this story, but I got to talk about
Okay.
it because it's perfect for this. And that is when I saw Children of Men in the theater, and you're following along with them, and the car sequence with Julianne Moore unexpectedly gets shot.
Yeah.
I had just lost someone close to me, like within 6 months of that. And so just seeing that in the theater, like I was already like a raw, open nerd, you know what I mean? And so when that happened, because I was kind of invested in it, you know what I mean? Like I enjoyed that movie very much, even though it's very dark. It's very depressing. Like I was into it. Like I was there with everybody, you know what I mean? And then when that happened, it shook me to the core. Which doesn't happen very often, you know what I mean? And that was one that will always stay with me because I was totally in that moment and I did not expect her to get shot. That was very unexpected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a rough one.
That's a heavy one.
That was a heavy
That's a
one.
heavy
And then
one.
they have to like have a quick funeral on the side of the road, basically. And
As he
move on.
walks off to the side and tries to like take a drink and his hands are shaking.
Yeah.
And oh man.
It's a rough
Anyway.
one. Now I can see the route we're taking, so I'm going to go ahead and go a little more somber too. This one was highly unexpected. It's gut wrenching to revisit this one. This is from one of my favorite movies of all time, and that's Serenity, when Wash dies at the end. Do you know this one?
I'm a leaf on the wind.
They've just gone through something dramatic. They surprisingly survive.
I didn't think about this one.
And then he just looks over at them and he goes,
I'm a leaf on the wind. Watch how I
And then, of course, Gina Torres is an amazing actress, and her immediate reaction of just, come on, we got to go, we got to get up. And you're just dying inside because you know what everyone else knows, that he didn't make it through that. That was instant death. And that one sucked, man. Because that was a group of people that a lot of us had come to love, especially through the show. And they finally got the movie, and wow, was that an impactful way to finish that thing off. Because they were almost out of there. They were about to win. Things were about to go good. And
gotta kill the pilot.
That's a hard one. Wash is a hard one. I'm glad I could revisit that. Woo, I'm about to cry.
Well, here's an interesting
love you,
one
Alan.
one that did make me cry. And it's actually the opposite of unexpected, which is kind of hard to pull off and still make it be as emotional. And that's in Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge.
Oh, you know she's going to die, yeah.
You know from the very beginning that she's going to die. And not only that, it revisits that periodically throughout the movie. It goes back to Christian writing the story, and you are reminded that they do not end up together. She dies. And then still, though, when she dies, it breaks my heart.
You've got to go on, Christian.
I'm going without you.
I love that movie.
I know you do. I enjoy that
I
movie
do.
a lot as well. I have a
love
good time
Moulin
with that
Rouge.
one. It's got a lot of high energy, and then which I think is this like false flag that it's waving. Like you're here to have this great time and see this love story. I'm gonna just rip your heart out at the end.
But anyway, yeah, that's just one that's hard to pull off, just from a technical standpoint, trying to like, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, and I'm still going to make you care at the end of it.
Okay.
It's hard to do.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to switch over to now memorable deaths or sacrificial deaths.
Okay.
So these are those ones. I think we're going to get a little somber in here. There are some in here that have stuck with me because they made me bawl my eyes out when I saw them the first time. I guess Terminator 2, I'm going to start it off with that.
Okay.
So we'll do something that's not as tear jerky, but is a great ending to an amazing 10 out of 10 film. And that's obviously when Schwarzenegger lowers himself down into the molten thing. He's like,
There's one more chip.
and he just lowers himself down slowly. And he just, it's a good moment. It's a good moment. You know, especially since once again, he was the villain of the first movie. So for him to be the hero, how, you know,
Make the villain the hero.
Yeah, pretty interesting
Switch
concept.
Turn it on its head.
Yeah.
It was good. That was smart.
So what do you got? You want to go deeper?
Yeah, one of the ones that stayed with me for, a long time now. In the movie, it is Michael Mann's The Last of the Mohicans.
Oh.
And at the end, when the officer trades himself for her.
Trade him. Me for her! You answer
Even though she didn't choose him, she chose someone else, but he still sacrificed himself. And when Daniel Day-Lewis's character, Nathaniel, recognizes what's happening, he runs. And the first thing he does is he gets a rifle and he turns and he shoots him in the head as he's being burned alive. And I was maybe 13 when I saw that, and my head caved in at the idea of not only what the officer had just done, but that the best thing that he could do in that moment was to end his suffering as quickly as possible, and that's to run and turn and shoot and end it. And that just really opened up.
You're bringing your A game today. Woo.
You know, choices.
Yeah. That's a rough one.
People have to make in life sometimes. And even though that's not what you want to do, it's the best thing that you can do for someone else.
I've actually never seen this film, but I remember how impactful it was with Daniel Day-Lewis, right? That's what we're talking about.
Deep Thoughts with Justin.
Ooh, don't worry. I couldn't not put it on this list. Even though this movie necessarily hasn't aged that well, this moment in this movie is pretty epic. And that's when Bruce Willis sacrifices himself to save Ben Affleck in Armageddon. I'm telling you, the music sweeps in. He's pounding on the glass and he's just crying his eyes out. And Bruce Willis is like,
You take care of yourself.
I love you.
Harry,
Yeah.
no! I love you, Harry!
Oh, it's so good. It's such a good
I
moment.
did not think about Bruce Willis
Yeah.
in Armageddon.
And even though it's kind of this like over the top, right, Michael Bay production, right? You know, it kind of hits the high note right there, and you're feeling it.
No,
you're
man, right
feeling
on.
it at the end there. Yeah,
Armageddon's one of those we don't like the term guilty pleasures, but I guess it would kind of fall into
falls
those.
into that. Yeah. Oh man.
One of the ones from my childhood, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this one up, and this is one of those like childhood death movies. And I have more books that I think did this to me, but this movie was the one that did it, and that's My Girl.
Oh, you nailed it. Yes. Go ahead. I'll let you tell your
When
part of it.
Macaulay
Yes.
Culkin dies
100%
and-
from bee stings.
Because that came out, we were the same age as basically the
pretty much
as them, and so that one.
He's okay, isn't he?
There were just too many of them.
As a child,
and
it has Dan Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis. That whole movie is so. I mean, it's poignant, but
so charming of a movie too.
it's a
guys.
charming, but it's heavy too. And that was one of those, taught me about death movies.
Yes.
Because that's the whole point is that she lives. She's learning about life and death, and so you kind of. I thought that was an interesting way for kids.
Death doesn't bother her. She's around it all the
Right.
time. That's her thing. And then her friend, guys,
Her friend
when
dies.
my dad came into the living room, I was at the end of that movie. I was bawling like a baby for this movie. Even though I understood films, I knew that this was fake. I knew that Macaulay Culkin wasn't dead. I was
you were
losing
invested.
my shit over the ending.
Yeah.
And when she starts losing it and trying to wake him up, I mean, you can't
Put his glasses on. Put on his glasses.
not help but just be in the moment with her. And of course, the actress, I can't think of her name, but she just
Anna Klumsky.
Oh, she just sells it, and she's so talented for such a young age, and just made you just swell up, man. I mean,
Your heart breaks.
Oh, good call.
It's a
Good call
heartbreaker.
on My Girl.
That's
I
a
cut that off the
heartbreaker.
list because I didn't want to talk about that story, but here we are.
Here we are. That's what we're doing. That's the point.
Oh man. Okay, so I'm not gonna go with one that's super sad, but once again memorable.
I got mostly like epic.
I do. I've got.
Let's get it, and we'll end it on a high note of
really?
some.
Okay, because I was gonna save it for this one special one, but if we want to end on a high note, I can't save this.
Let's
one.
end with the epic. So we're going sad. Is there anything else sad that
Guys, if this doesn't make you cry, I don't know what will. Even though that horse comes back to life at the end of the movie, Artax
that was next?
Come on, boy.
in the swamps of sadness.
Artax, you're sinking. Come on.
Oh my God.
It's hard to watch, guys.
Artax!
So that's the last of my really sad ones.
Okay.
So we got to switch it over to some more epic ones.
But they'll never take our freedom!
Yeah, that's how you go.
Should have brought the Kleenex for this, but okay, we're going to shift gears. Go ahead, man. What's epic in your mind then when it comes to these?
One for me is at the end of Leon the Professional.
Okay, we were just talking about this, yeah.
When he's laying there and Gary Oldman's looking him out of the face and he hands him the pin from the grenade.
This is from Matilda.
He opens up his coat and he's strapped to the gills with dynamite and boom! I'm here to kill you. And before I do it, I'm gonna give you the trigger that is our destruction. And we're gonna go together. That's epic.
Oh, that's fucking great. I've not seen that one, but I'm going to go ahead and just match you. It's another grenade sacrificial death scene, and that's in Aliens. When Gorman and her get stuck in the shaft and the aliens coming from all direction, and she goes, what's the famous line?
You always were a Gorman.
And then they like hold on to the little grenade and just blow themselves up to make the sacrificial play. That one always stood out to me. There's a lot of great deaths in Aliens. There's a lot of good ones in that movie, especially when what is the girl's name in this one? Why am I? What is her name?
Newt.
No. The military girl, the Marine.
Oh, Vasquez.
Vasquez, yeah, and Gorman. You know, they hate each other, but then they have to make the play together. And she stays behind to drag him along, even though she hates him.
She was also in T2. She was the stepmom.
I swear, I have had it with that goddamn kid.
Yeah, she was.
Or the foster mother, I should say.
Yep, she has that small cameo.
She's not
my mother, Todd.
That's a fun fact for everybody right there. So I had to put that one in there. There's so many good moments in the Aliens franchise. And really...
And Titanic.
Honestly...
She's an Irish mother who goes down in the ship.
In the land of Tir na Nog.
You're so good at that sometimes. But Aliens 3, I had to give a quick shout out to. I mean, Sigourney jumping off into the lava with the chest burster.
Yeah.
Even though that movie's not that good.
We've talked about this.
That moment right there is nicely iconic. That is epic.
Well, speaking of falling, and then that's the end of Die Hard. We got Rickman going off the building. That's an epic moment.
An epic.
Well, I hope that's not a hostage.
And of course, I'm sure you guys know the story, but the director was like, I'm going to drop you on 3, and he dropped him on 2. So that surprise look, because Rickman actually had to do the stunt himself. I think he fell, what was it, 50 feet? Something, it was like a pretty good height.
That's 5 stories.
And then they obviously had a stunt double do the extra one that came outside of the studio
stunt.
Lot. Yeah. Gosh, that's a good one. Alan Rickman falling. Yeah, that is iconic.
And that makes me think of too. I've got in The Godfather, the end of, or near the end, I guess like 3/4 of the way. I know you haven't seen The Godfather,
no, but people did recommend
James
it.
Caan, who's the oldest, he plays Sonny. They shoot him up. They cover James Caan in squibs, man. And this is in the 70s. And they just blow him up.
I mean, speaking of another kind of mafia one, Casino with Joe Pesci getting beat with the baseball bats with his brother.
Oh my
and buried
God.
alive.
The word was out. The bosses had enough of Nicky. They had enough. How much were they going to take? So they made an example of him and his brother. They buried them while they were still breathing.
Oh, man. Okay. So then moving on to more epic ones, though. Those were just some random toss-outs, guys.
Those are epic to me.
But Mad Max Fury Road, Nux, when he makes the sacrificial play at the very end of the movie, man. We get to grow and like this war boy and, you know, he believes that he's destined for Valhalla and da-da-da-da-da. And there's even this little love story in the back of the semi-truck with him and that redhead. But then he just goes, witness me, and yanks that thing. I mean, it's a good ending to that whole driving sequence so he can block that pass. And that always sticks out to me. I really like that crash sequence. And the fact they did that practically, you know that, right? They hired a stunt driver to just jackknife that truck And he did it perfectly and was able to nail it and have it come towards the camera like that. And then obviously they added all that extra
sort of.
stuff.
I was going to say, when you look at the footage versus
they
what's
added all that
actually on
extra
screen,
stuff,
they manipulate it so much.
Yeah, they did.
that-
But it was still a practical stunt, and it was a really
They
cool
did
one.
shoot something,
Yes.
and some of it ended up on screen.
Yeah. So is that what's next? I mean, that was another sacrificial one, but yeah, go memorable, go big.
Well, one of the most epic deaths for me that's always stayed with me, and I love this movie, and I know the star and filmmaker can be problematic, but this movie, I think he just knocked it out of the park. And I know it's not one of your movies, but it's one of my movies from that time period, and that's Braveheart.
Oh, okay.
And William Wallace being tortured.
to death. I have seen that sequence. I think I have seen this movie one time, but I was just a child. But go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
the ending when he's
just screaming because he won't give in.
Yeah.
And then you see the axe coming down, and then you see his hand open, and it drops the piece of cloth that he was given to him by
the girl,
his
yeah.
bride, who was murdered, which sets off the plot and all that good stuff. But that one was such an epic. Like, I never want to die. Like, there's no part of me that's like, I want to die an uncompromising warrior's death like that too. I'm mostly like, that. That is not how Justin's gonna go. But it's so good.
But I think that love story and the love that was shared on screen is why that movie was so monumental when it came out. I think husbands and wives were able to go to the theater and enjoy that, even though it was pretty graphic and violent, especially at the time, with all the swords play and the blood that they were doing in there. And then, of course, the torture at the end. But the fact that his love was everlasting and he did it for a woman and just, you know. And you're right. Well, he won't relent at the end.
It was a noble cause.
It was good. All right. Well, I've got
That
some
was
more
a big one.
epic ones on here.
Okay.
And I'm going to go a little bit more modern. This one, I don't know. Maybe it seems obvious, maybe not. But Tony Stark, man, Iron Man, making the snap at the end. I am Iron Man. Bam. And ending what was a 10-year, pretty epic saga that had started with him, you know, ending his first movie saying, I am Iron Man to the press and announcing that there was not going to be any, you know, mythos where we had to have alter egos. We were just going to come out and be the superheroes that we are. And then he ends it that way. And then they have the funeral sequence. It really was a nice bow that they tied onto a really good set of stories. I mean, not every Marvel movie leading up to that was the best, but as a whole, they were so above average for what we were expected to get with previous superhero movies and, you know, what we had before.
I'll give them that.
And so I think that they definitely swung for the fences, landed it. They really stuck the landing in Endgame. And, you know, having Iron Man make the sacrificial play, because that was the whole thing in the first one, was you're not the kind of guy that to lie down and let the others run over you. You know, you don't make the sacrificial play, is what Cap says to him in the first Avengers. And obviously he saves the day in that one with nuke and everything, and he's dealing with that. But he really does go for glory in that last one. And that's monumental. And they didn't get that line right until they did reshoots just a few weeks before the release of the movie. They didn't have that scripted
well,
yet.
his schedule is probably pretty.
Well, they didn't have it scripted yet. They didn't know what they were like.
okay.
How do we end this? And they didn't get it figured out, so they had to do some reshoots. So that was actually one of the last things that they filmed as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Right on.
So anyway, I don't know if that was too obvious, but I had to bring it up because it's so
no,
epic.
there's nothing too obvious for
Good.
this. So one of the ones that a buddy of mine mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta mention that, even though it's not quite epic. Well, it is sort of epic, and that is Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket and Private Pile in the bathroom.
Order! This is my rifle! There are many like it, but this one is mine! My rifle is my best friend! It is my life! Get back in your bunks!
His suicide, that is the first half of the movie ends with Private Pile's suicide, and that is an iconic on-screen death.
And, you know, murder suicide, because he shoots the drill sergeant too, right?
It is a murder suicide.
Arlie Ermy.
Didn't Mommy and Daddy show you enough attention when you were a child?
But not Matthew Modine. Joker lives.
Yeah, I tell my wife about that movie all the time. I was like, it's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen that I never want to watch again. Does that make sense? That movie makes you angry. It's depressing. It's violent. It's real. It's very real. And Kubrick obviously has this attention to detail. Everyone's amazing in it. I had a very memorable experience watching it, but I never want to watch that movie again.
Sure.
Ugh.
Well, I think you could say that for most people about most Kubrick movies. The only one that I actually enjoy like putting on for fun is Dr. Strangelove.
Okay. That one has some rewatchability for sure.
It's a dark comedy,
very
and Peter
crazy-
Sellers
yeah,
is
he's so good in
fantastic.
that one, yes.
So, I mean, you know, that one plays.
There's an epic death, him riding the nuke all the way down. Let's go ahead and
Yes,
throw it
that's
in there.
on my
Oh, it is.
list.
Okay, let's go ahead and throw it in there while we're on it.
Hey, what about Major Kong?
The last one, okay? Now, the reason I'm saving this one for last is just because everyone makes a sacrificial play and no one survives at the end of this movie. And it's still one of
Okay.
my favorite Star Wars movies, and that's Rogue One. When they do make the sacrifice and you just start watching them slowly die one by one as they know that I have to do everything in my power to make this last action happen so the next
Yep.
person can carry it towards the end zone.
Yep.
And none of them
That's
survive.
Heroic.
I love that movie. I think it
Heroic
is super
sacrifice.
underrated, but I feel like I get a little bit more of an idea of what the world is like and why these people are fighting so hard against this imperialistic empire. And I really enjoy that one. And
Me
everyone
too.
dies, and it feels.
And
you feel it.
everyone dies.
Everyone dies. No one survives that one at all.
I'm with you.
Everyone is just being sacrificed left and right, but they're doing it in a heroic manner. So that's why I wanted to save that one for last, because
Okay, cool. No,
everyone
I
makes
got nothing
the
on that.
sacrificial play. So, well,
Let's end it on that.
guys, this was
That-
epic today. This
Whoa.
was a big one. We covered a lot of films and great moments in cinema, especially talking about gruesome deaths and comedic deaths and all these other kind of iconic
Unexpected.
moments. I loved it, man. This was a great
This was
topic.
great.
So I really appreciate everyone that chimed in this past week and gave us some more suggestions. Big shout out to our fans. Thank you so much for hopping in and joining us on Facebook. If you haven't, we do have a Facebook group, so we can carry on these conversations after the podcast and talk about more stuff off the air. And that's where we do it at. What is it? Pack to the Podcast Discussion is what I think it's called on Facebook. We also have our Facebook page. We've got the YouTube channel. We put out stuff every single week. If this is your first time checking us out and you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Think about subscribing, because all we do is talk about films, past, present, and future. Justin, thank you so much for joining me on another epic episode. I think we really knocked it out of the park. This was
That
a lot
was
of fun.
epic.
I can't even wait to see how this one comes together. So,
Me too.
Well, that's really it. We don't have any other
That's it.
things to tell you. So
I'm
you
out.
guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the next episode of Back to the Podcast.